And now we have this document that's just been released by the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. It's entitled Superseding Indictment. The grand jury charges and lists all the charges. And it says this is a case involving the United States of America versus Donald J. Trump, Walt Nauta, and Carlos de Oliveira. So it's a significant development indeed, and there's a lot of information in this document. Andrew McCabe is still with us, the former deputy director of the FBI. What do you make of this latest allegation that the Trump team, that these three individuals specifically, tried to delete surveillance footage?
Well, Wolf, it's a stunning development, and it does make sense with what we know of the special counsel's inquiries over the last couple of months. In addition to asking many witnesses in front of the grand jury questions about the servers and whether or not they may have been damaged in the draining of the pool, those sorts of things, we also know they served legal process on a technology company that's responsible for maintaining the server. So they've clearly been digging on this for a while. It's also the charge that we're hearing about against the former president is particularly damning because as we've talked about the previous charges, we were all struck when the original indictment came out and it showed the president's direct involvement in things like reviewing boxes and looking at the materials that were in there, really kind of evidence that would undermine any sort of defense that he could possibly say at trial, saying, I didn't know that I had national defense information. Well, this charge alleges not just that he knew what was in the boxes, but he was actively involved in trying to destroy evidence. The surveillance tapes, knowing they'd been subpoenaed, that he may have been, it's an allegation at this point, actively involved in coercing others, asking others to destroy that evidence. That is the very heart of obstruction of justice. And it's a very serious charge, and one that overall, in the overall context of all the problems he's facing, makes him look much more guilty.
Bottom line right now, Andrew, let me get your thought. The new charges being leveled not only against these two other individuals, but also the former president. The earlier case that was revealed, all of the other charges involving the Mar-a-Lago classified documents, concealment and all of that, those were very, very hard to begin with. This only makes it even more legally painful, potentially, for the former president, right?
That's absolutely right, because it opens up a whole new area of evidence and questioning and testimony that would come into a trial that shows him even more deeply involved in a scheme to destroy evidence and to deny, to withhold what the government had demanded of him through legal process. It's very, very serious.
Yeah, and Gloria Borger, this is a legal nightmare that's unfolding for the former president right now.
Well, let me just, echo what Andy McCabe is saying. First of all, and Evan was alluding to this earlier, I think the question has always been, who was the wizard behind the curtain directing things? Was it the former president of the United States telling people that this was what they had to do, that this is how they had to destroy evidence if it comes to that, obstruct justice, move boxes, et cetera, et cetera? How deeply involved, if at all, was the president himself in any kind of obstruction? And what this alleges is that the president, former president, was deeply involved. He was, according to this, the wizard behind the curtain. The other thing that really strikes me, and I've learned this over the years from covering these cases, is that timing is really, really important. And what would have tipped off these prosecutors to saying, okay, we really need to kind of pay more attention to these phone calls is that because the call was placed shortly after prosecutors had issued their subpoena to Trump's company, the Trump Organization. So when you look at a timeline, you have to take a look at this and say, well, why would they move this footage if the subpoena hadn't demanded the surveillance tapes? And that is exactly why footage was probably moved. So I think as we look at this in a broad scheme, this answers, or tries to answer, or may answer, a lot of really important and damning questions about the former president's involvement in all of this and the moving of these Mar-a-Lago and trying to hide these Mar-a-Lago documents.
Very significant. Norm Eisen is with us as well. I'm reading this document, this superseding indictment that just came out with a lot of new information. One line that jumped out at me, I want to get your thought. Trump was not authorized to possess or retain those classified documents. He keeps insisting he was authorized as president of the United States, even though he removed those documents after he left office. He was authorized to retain those kinds of documents. What do you say?
Wolf, I worked on these issues when I was in government, and he absolutely was not authorized to handle them. We have statutes and regulations and executive orders that set up the system for handling this. We know he's admitted limitations on his power. Some of those conversations happened after he left the presidency, where he admitted, once I had the power, now I do not. So that is not going to avail him when it comes to defending his conduct. It's very important in looking now at Mr. de Oliveira, the third defendant in this case, to reflect that neither he nor Mr. Nauta had that power of handling these documents either. So there's a third person who is implicated in the mishandling of this. And Wolf, it's not just the high-tech security footage issues. It's the old-fashioned moving of boxes, handling of paper. One of the gaps that has been filled in. We had a question after the first indictment. One of the paragraphs said that Trump's instruction, Mr. Nauta, together with another individual, moved boxes. Now we know the new indictment specifies that was Mr. de Oliveira. So the picture continues to become damning. How striking, finally, Wolf, that on a day when we were expecting, wondering would there be news about the January 6th investigation, Jack Smith has gone ahead. He's put his lawman blinders on, and he's going straight ahead, and irrespective of the political or other consequences, he's making these charges known. I think that suggests that he's not going to look at the election calendar. He's not going to look at the PR or media issues. He's going to go straight ahead. That is not good news for Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's very bad news, legally speaking, for the former president. Paula, what else are you learning?
So, Wolf, a really significant development here. As we know, as Caitlin Polans and I have reported, prosecutors obtained this audio recording of former President Trump. He's at a meeting at his Bedminster property, and he suggests that he is still in possession of a classified document. Now, one thing that we couldn't really understand from the first indictment is why he was not charged with retaining that document. There are questions about whether the investigators had it, if the former president's lawyers obtained it. But what's interesting is in this indictment, that is specifically charged. On page 17, they say that that document they're referring to, the one he references in that recording, is the one that was possessed by him and shown on July 21st, 2021. Is charged as count 32, so that's now the last document that's listed here, and it describes it as being a top secret and presenting information concerning military activity in a foreign country. That really fills in something that we've been wondering about for a while, because there were questions about whether he actually had a classified document, if he was just sort of embellishing, posturing, and then there were questions about whether the former president's legal team was able to find it and hand it over. So that's another really notable development in this new indictment.
And it makes it clear these documents were not just confidential information or even secret information. They were top secret information, SCI, sensitive compartmented information, the highest category of classified information.
Remember the criteria here. It has to be information that is sensitive to the sense that it would be helpful to those who wish to do us harm, and something that we do not want our allies to know that we have revealed. We keep it close to the vest in some respects. Some of the most stunning developments in this new indictment go right to the heart of why Carlos de Oliveira is actually considered a co-conspirator. Part of it lays out what the conduct was after Trump or the boss contacted Mr. de Oliveira, and includes him going to different employees who are named in the complaint as employee number X, Y, and Z, or number 1, 2, 3, 4, which tells you There have been people to have testified or spoken with the prosecution team and are now considered witnesses who have not been indicted themselves. In it, it lays out conversations with the director of the IT department at Mar-a-Lago. It lays out conversations about going with a flashlight into a tunnel to identify the location of different surveillance footage cameras and beyond. It even talks about a moment when Mr. De Oliveira apparently goes to somebody who is the director of IT and says, essentially, I want to talk to you privately, and another employee is told to step out. So it leaves you wondering what the nature of that communication was. It also entails that these boxes were placed by Nada at some point and De Oliveira onto an aircraft that was traveling north to Bedminster in New Jersey with the Trump family. And so all this tells you about just how many points of reference and evidentiary burdens would likely be able to be met if you're talking about employees who are giving this testimony. It's really stunning to think about the breadth. I keep coming back to, when was this all discovered? Was it known all along? Was there some reason why we're only hearing about it now? Or was this part of a prosecutorial strategy to develop a witness who eventually became a defendant?